to the Pitcher Nail Down. I'm Jason Gilbo, JGilbo11. With me is Russell Clay at Russell J. Clay. Taking a look at pitching on FanDuel and DraftKings for tonight. A lot of strong names up top. Value a little bit limited, but you can probably make do with a couple arms there.
Yeah, I think we're going to, again, make do, sir. Yes, we're going to make do.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way to put it. Exactly as you said it and stated.
And I mean, kind of like, when you're in jail and you have to do pods, you just do, what you can, you got to grind through.
You just got to make do. They slide you your meal under the door.
They slide you your backdrop,
Yeah.
That's all you need.
The extra tape when it comes down like halfway through.
Yeah. We're pinned up today. We got a little innovative with the, we got some string, some like metal, and like it's propped up now, so we shouldn't have any issues today, folks.
Do you have like a ball that you just bounce back off the wall, bounce like back and forth like they do?
No. I feel like I'd have dice that I just roll over and over again.
Yeah.
I'd be the dice guy that would always lose his cigarettes or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, you got to lose somehow there. You gotta get on people's good sides.
That's true, and I don't smoke, so yeah, that'd be a good way. Guys, I got all these cigarettes. All right. Yeah, okay.
We'll jump into pitching here.
Okay.
Orioles and Nationals here first. Tanner Roark versus Wade Miley. Wade Miley, a guy who I'm not looking to use against this Nationals offense. That's very solid against left-handers. Moving to Washington as far as the park goes, I mean, obviously a bump for park factors in comparison to Baltimore, but Miley's obviously not a guy to look at tonight.
No, this game I'm not really looking at too seriously in terms of pitching. I like some of the lefties in that Orioles lineup against Roark and Miley. I'm just not taking the risk with Ramos, Rendon, Worth and Turner there, especially Jason Worth. He's pretty much cash for me.
Yeah, I think so too. And as you mentioned, I mean, Tanner Roark's a guy I'm not really looking to use. I mean, has had a solid stretch here of late. I mean, obviously his downside against Atlanta was probably just a result of facing them a couple times already this year. Mm-hmm. Obviously Baltimore, I mean, there is a strikeout potential there, but obviously second WOBA against righties, 203 ISO. It's just kind of those ones where around the other price ranges, I actually like some other guys more.
Yep, agreed.
So. Angels and Blue Jays next year. Toronto minus 159 favorites. You got Matt Schumacher versus Marco Estrada. Schumacher on the road this year, not as good as he's been at home. Obviously, you can make the case for some strikeout upside. I won't be going down that path tonight. I just think, given his splits against righties over the last few years, I just want to kind of stay away from.
Yeah, this is another one where I'm pretty indifferent. Schumacher and Estrada, just meh. I'm worried about the front of that lineup for Estrada. Beyond that, obviously, we've been joking around with it for the past few days. But I mean, if he can get past Trout, he's got pretty smooth sailing. But it's still just a tournament move for me.
See, I find him as a cash game SB2 on DraftKings, just because of the price. I mean, obviously I'm not expecting a high upside game out of him, just because when the Angels don't really strike out a ton, I can maybe see him floating around maybe 5 strikeouts or so, and kind of picking up a win, decent start, 6 innings. He's a guy who, I mean, obviously we've talked about him possibly kind of being a little bit lucky, having some regression. I don't think it'll come here. I think you just got to pick your spots with Estrada and you'll be fine. Tonight's kind of one of those nights for me.
So sort of pair him with a Jose Fernandez or something like that and feel pretty comfortable about it, that type of deal.
Yeah, because I mean, if you plug in, anyone above 10K or Darvish or Porcello, I mean, it leaves you with 3,100. Mm-hmm. At least with Estrada, I mean, 8,600, certainly a little bit more reasonable. I mean, he's a guy who has been priced up. I mean, over 10K at times this year. I mean, we've seen it in the past. I mean, most of the time he's in the 9K, 10K range. So 8,600 is a decent price for him in this matchup.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't love it. I don't love what Estrada's done. But overall, I can definitely see that logic for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that it's more just kind of slate dependent for me.
Yeah.
It's really only DK. I'm not looking at him on FanDuel at all.
Right, I gotcha.
So, next one, you got the Red Sox and Rays. Matt Andriese versus Rick Porcello. And Rick Porcello is a guy who has dominated the Rays this season. And obviously, I mean, just kind of continues to roll out really solid starts and pitching in Tropicana, one of the better ballparks there. He's a guy, I mean, his last 10 outings, I mean, 20 or more DK points in all but one. And that one was against Texas. So, I mean, okay, but he's been solid. And I know we've kind of always been, he's a little bit overpriced on DraftKings, but I actually don't mind it. I mean, I really don't mind him tonight in this matchup.
Yeah, and in all those games he gave up more than one earned run. It was like he got 8 strikeouts or went a complete game or did something else wacky. So, I mean, he's been on fire of late. How about these Red Sox with the pitching staff of late? And by of late, I mean like the last 2 days. But, they've been waiting on this the whole season and finally starting to come together for him. So that's certainly a positive indicator. I agree. I think you go at the Rays here. Obviously, you don't like paying 12 for Porcello, but that consistency and floor is worth it at this stage.
Yeah, I mean, obviously a little worrisome going up against Tampa for the fourth time, but I mean, given the fact that he's already faced him 3 times this season, has allowed just 5 earned runs, striking out 22 and 20 innings pitched. I mean, those are solid numbers. I mean, he's dominated them this year, so he's expensive, but I'm certainly okay with it. I mean, I like his price at 9,700 on FanDuel, kind of an interesting swerve off of guys like Darvish and Fernandez.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Yes.
So, and on the other side, not really looking to use injuries against the Sox offense. It is a pretty low total for the Sox there, but I don't think it's going to be anything productive for him.
I think we're more looking towards some of the Red Sox bats in that matchup, I'd say.
Yeah, definitely. Next one here, you got the Royals and Marlins, Jose Fernandez versus Dylan G. Fernandez is obviously a guy who I don't mind at home anytime because obviously he's one of the better home park pitchers in the game. We've seen that this year. I mean, he's had a couple of rough games in a row here, but I mean, at Cincinnati, San Francisco, at Chicago, St. Louis, I mean, kind of reasonable teams where he hasn't really struggled outside that Cincinnati game, but he just hasn't been kind of that high ceiling guy like we saw really before August started.
Right. And I mean, we kind of saw that with Arrieta too, where it's just like a little mid-season blip on the screen here. So in terms of that, I'm not too worried. It's a good matchup. I think we fire away here. Obviously, in tournaments, if you're making, 25 lineups, you want to hedge with Porcello, you want to hedge with Darvish, you want to hedge, with a bunch of guys here. But overall, I mean, in terms of cash, I don't see why he wouldn't be, in contention for you as your SP1.
Yeah, I mean the Royals have been have been winning games, I mean, but their offense still hasn't really been the most productive. I mean, you still look at them; they're bottom 5 in WOBA against righties, 20% strikeout rate, and obviously Fernandez, I mean, leads the slate and swinging strike percentage and strikeout rate. I mean, over 35%. So he's just going to give you that high floor and high ceiling in this matchup, especially being at home, because I think that's one of the more important things here, given Fernandez has struggled a little bit on the road.
Right, and it doesn't matter if he doesn't get a lot of strikeouts if the Royals literally can't get on base. So
It's true.
As long as he just gets them out, which I'd say is very likely, then, he's going to be a good play.
Yeah, definitely. And I expect some run support. I mean, he's a big -213 favorite. Dylan G, very average right-hander at best. I think you can actually pick on him tonight with quite a few Marlins bats.
Yeah, which is weird to say, but I think we're okay to fire off with that D. Gordon price.
Oh yeah, I think today is one where I actually am looking to use him. I think it's fallen enough to the point where I actually do like it today.
Right, it's not sitting at 5K every day anymore, so that's nice.
Yeah. Rangers and Reds next here. You Darvish versus Tim Adelman. And Darvish, obviously, the next kind of top tier option outside of Fernandez. And as far as strikeout rate goes, I mean, he's the other one who's over 30%. Obviously, in a bad pitcher's park, but you know what? I don't worry about that with Darvish that much because he's pitched in Texas in his career. A little bit of a home run issue so far to start the year or start, when he returned, but I'm not really too worried about it. I think he could actually really dominate this back half of the lineup.
So I guess not really worried about it, but in comparison to Jose Fernandez, probably a step down even with the price reduction, right?
I wouldn't say that. I mean, I see them pretty equal tonight. I mean, obviously, I think the only difference is ballpark factor.
Mm.
And I mean, because the Reds still have a couple names up front, so do the Royals. The strikeout rate's pretty similar for both these guys and both these matchups, so it's pretty close. As far as getting a win, I think I might lean on Fernandez maybe a little bit more, but outside of that, I think it's pretty close.
Okay, so yeah, I mean they're both in cash consideration, and I think that's going to be something where when you're setting your lineups, the Royal, your when we're all setting our lineups, that's going to be a decision you're going to have to make. But they are both cash options.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I mean, it's hard not to pick on these Reds offense, especially the strikeout rate. I mean, I'm just looking at that lineup, and it's like, okay, you get past Duvall and Votto, and you keep Billy Hamilton off base. It's three guys.
Bro, don't knock Scott Schebler, bro.
Oh, I'm going to knock him because he's going to be able to strike out at
Ah,
least 2 times tonight. But I'm just saying, the point being, after that, there's not a lot there.
No, you're right. You're right.
So it's something that you can kind of fire away with. And as you mentioned, all formats.
Yeah.
Solid.
And we're not really looking at Tim Edelman here, I don't think.
No, I mean, I don't mind him. I mean, I there is stuff I see in him that I do like, but for the most part, yeah. I mean, he's not going to go deep into games. I mean, he's going to give you about 5 innings, 6 at the most. For the most part, I mean, he might actually keep me down a little bit from using a lot of Texas bats.
Yeah, I agree. That's kind of the way I'm looking at that one. Not using him, but maybe, not getting that Odor exposure that I got yesterday.
Yeah, I definitely think so too. So it's one of those ones where Edelman's good enough to kind of keep you a little bit tempered as far as going all aboard there.
Yep.
Phillies and White Sox next year. Gerard Eichhoff versus James Shields. Eichhoff's price is a little bit high for me in this matchup, especially for a guy who's really struggled on the road. An L pitcher going to a good AL ballpark in the way he's handled against lefties. I'm definitely not looking to use him.
Yeah, 2 home runs allowed in each of the last 3 games. So this is going to be heading into a tough ballpark. Obviously, we saw what the White Sox could do yesterday. Can't expect that every day, but I think there's quite a few guys in this lineup that you can certainly target. So not looking at Eichhoff. James Shields not in play on FD, but could this be like your Buchholz from yesterday? Well, not like your Buchholz because he got 9 strikeouts and was dominant, but could he be sneak in 13 to 15 points there?
He's been in the negatives in each of his last 4 starts, so it's a little bit different for me in comparison to Buchholz was at least pitching well before coming into last night's game. Shields is not.
I know he's not. He's awful, but
I mean, I especially on tonight's slate when you do have Darvish and Fernandez, and obviously if you use a Shields, it's 4K. It only adds up to about 16 to 17,000 between your 2 pitchers. I can see the appeal. I don't think I can quite stomach rostering Shields because I know that negative is going to come back to really just bite you in the ass come the end of the night.
It will.
So,
yeah.
The Phillies lineup up top. I mean, 1 through 6, I even 7 actually. It feels weird to say I don't mind those bats. I actually like using more Phillies than I do actually using Shields.
It's not horrible. So I think that's probably not something you do in a tournament, but I mean, if you're getting really desperate and maybe you want to get a high-end stack with Fernandez, something to ponder for a minute.
Yeah, I mean, for a minute, and then you might realize, oh my God, what am I doing?
Oh my God, how'd I get in jail?
Because it's
making these decisions.
There was a stretch early on in the season where Shields, I mean, was just getting tattooed, and they kept throwing him down there at the 4K range, and it was like people would bite, and I feel like this might be a similar situation.
If you think about it, this would be a decision that butterfly affects you into jail somehow, like picking James Shields in DFS. That could certainly, you get angry, you go out driving, you get road rage, and then you get in a fight, and it's not inconceivable. So maybe you should fade James Shields tonight.
Yeah, I mean, for the exact reasons that you might just go out and get road rage and get into a fight after. I think that sums it up.
Yeah.
So, Tigers and Twins next here. Tyler Duffy taking on Matt Boyd. Tyler Duffy obviously has been a little bit frustrating of late. I mean, has a couple good starts, got blown up against Kansas City. Has faced Detroit once already this year and actually threw pretty well. I mean, he was a little bit unlucky with the 3 unearned runs, but 7 strikeouts. I'm not expecting that here tonight. Duffy had a reverse splits pitcher against this righty-heavy lineup. I like the Tigers' bats quite a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not really diving into either of these. I kind of like some of the righties on the other side of the coin against Boyd. So, yeah, this is an all-out fade for me in terms of pitching.
I'm not going to rule out Boyd and GPPs because of the price tag. I mean, he is a guy, obviously, I'm not confident in his ability, but I think for the matchup, I mean, obviously, it's kind of a boomer bust situation with the Twins. 23% strikeout rate. They do rank 10th in WOBA, but it's solely just a GPP play because I do think he could go and pick up a win against Duffy. I do think there is some run support there, but obviously, high risk, high reward.
That's fair. I mean, 71's not killing you for sure, so you can still pay up for the big boys as well with him.
Yeah, definitely. It's one of those ones where you're certainly looking to pair him with another guy.
And that's not on FanDuel, correct?
No, I can't see myself really dropping down Rick Porcello. I think Rick Porcello is about the lowest I might go on FanDuel tonight.
Yeah.
So, next game here, we got the Mets and Cardinals. Jacob deGrom versus Carlos Martinez. Both these guys intriguing options, I think, as a swerve away from those tier 1 arms. I mean, we talked about Darvish, we talked about Fernandez, but Jacob deGrom, Carlos Martinez, I mean, those prices are certainly reasonable on DraftKings. I mean, low 9,000s. I think they could actually have a decent start. And this Cardinals offense striking out a little bit more in the second half. You look at that lineup, and it's like it doesn't scare me as much as it used to.
Yeah, I'm pretty indifferent on deGrom. I do agree. It's not a bad matchup, and the Cardinals certainly haven't been as explosive as they were in the first half. But overall, probably not something I'm going to need to do. As you mentioned, with Porcello there, with Darvish, with Fernandez, these guys are kind of deGrom's kind of in that almost pay up range where if you see a stack and you want to play it in a tournament and you can't fit in, that extra 3K, maybe fire away, but just a tournament move for me.
Yeah, that's certainly all it is. And I mean, I think the 3K mentioned, I think that's a significant drop down from those guys in Darvish and Hernandez. I mean, that's a good, a pretty solid kind of pay down option. I mean, I like deGrom a little bit more than Martinez, even though the Mets are a weaker offense. But I'm still not going to rule out Martinez and GPPs. I think you could have a strong start. Obviously, this Mets offense, they're healthy again, but still, I mean, they were kind of a middle of the road team against right-handed pitching anyway.
Yeah, I think this is a pretty indifferent matchup for Martinez. It could go either way. I mean, I could see, in terms of range of outcomes, I could see him getting a little beaten up, or having a pretty smooth start. You just worry about some of the lefties at the top of that lineup. Beyond that, he should be good to go. So fire away in tournaments, but also be careful and hedge.
Yeah, I definitely think so too. Braves and Diamondbacks, Zach Greinke versus Julio Teheran. This is a matchup where I guess you can make a case as a tournament swerve, but the way Greinke's pitched in Chase Field, I mean, he is a little bit of a pay down option in consideration to other guys. I'm not going to use him on FanDuel because he's only 500 or 800 less than the 2 top arms on the slate. So it's more of a DraftKings move where if you want to move down at 96, I'm okay with it. But I don't know. I'm not the biggest Greinke guy, especially at home. And the Braves really haven't been that bad against righties in the second half.
I'm not using him on FanDuel, but that could be fun. I feel like there's some upside there. Obviously, I'm starting to get a little afraid of the Braves here. What's going on? Why are they doing this? Not in terms of actually afraid, but in terms of, okay, well, I guess they're not bad anymore. So obviously turning it around quite a bit over the last month or so. Greinke, a righty, the same righty that Freddie Freeman seems to eat up every night. So you do worry about that. But overall, I kind of like Greinke as a tournament swerve. I think you could get some good ownership on him tonight.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, ownership wise, it's probably going to be pretty low because I mean he is in a tier where it's obviously below three quality arms,
Yep.
and I think people are going to look at that number. I mean, his home and away splits over 5 ERA, averaging about 9 DK points less at home this year. But obviously a solid start against Atlanta earlier this season, but that was on the road, so I do think there's a little bit more risk to it being at home. But I can definitely see using him in GPPs.
And especially with, Rich Hill, DeGrom, Martinez, and Estrada all in that range as well. I think he's like going to be the fourth or fifth option there for a lot of people. So interesting at the very least.
Yeah, definitely. And Tehran on the other side, cheaper guy. I just don't feel like I need to kind of go into it. I mean, the way he's pitched of late, I just can't really jump behind him. I mean, he's been pretty bad. You had to go back to his mid July start where he had his last over 20 DK point game, so he hasn't really been that great. And on FanDuel, I don't think he's really a strong favorite to get a win. So just doesn't add up to me to use him tonight.
No, I'm done. Out. Sorry, Terrain. We're not doing it tonight, buddy.
Maybe another time before the year ends.
Yeah, maybe once more. Maybe.
Giants and Dodgers next year. Johnny Cueto versus Rich Hill. Rich Hill finally making his Dodgers debut after what has to be a pretty severe blister to really be out that long. But he's pitching tonight. I mean, Giants offense that hasn't really been that great or that one to kind of shy away from. I don't know. I mean, I think Rich Hill's going to be pretty low owned. I mean, home favorite there.
I like it.
All right, well, yeah, you take it away. I mean,
I just think you look at his last start out, obviously, a great start against the Astros. The Giants are definitely a better offense in terms of K percentage than them, but I mean, in overall like potential, the Giants don't really have that much. I mean, especially against lefties. So I think there's quite a few players in this lineup to exploit. I think you mentioned he's going to be low owned, which I do believe, especially as we talked about with Greinke. There's a lot of guys in that range. People aren't going to be liking the win probability with Cueto on the hill against him. So I think there's a lot of things in a contrarian sense that are kind of could go his way.
Yeah, no, I definitely see that. I mean, 29% strikeout rate this year goes well with a 50% ground ball rate. My thing is obviously I think the injury is still that I'm concerned with. I mean, he's fully healed. He would have to be, but it's not like he can go pitch 3 innings, aggravate something again, and come right back out. So I think that there is some risk there, and obviously, he hasn't pitched in a little over a month in the bigs. So it's kind of like, well, that might take a toll on the pitcher. So I think there is kind of a little bit of a downside with that, where it does limit him to just GPPs, and there is some risk.
So if you could get him at 5%, would you be happy?
Yeah, and I think that's where he's probably going to sit.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be low, and I'm okay with tossing him in a few GPPs, but I am going to be aware that he could be a lineup killer too.
Yeah, okay. I should say tournament guy, but you are hedging for sure off him. You're not going ton of exposure on him. But if you get 2 or 3 lineups with him and he hits, sure.
Yeah, that's all you'd really be looking to use. And Cueto on the other side, Cueto's pitched well against the Dodgers this year. I mean, over 3 starts, he's allowed 9 earned, but has averaged 23, or has gotten 23 strikeouts in 22 innings. For me, he kind of gets lost on this slate. He hasn't really been pitching all that well. This Dodgers offense has been much different than what he's faced in the previous few starts against him. I don't see the real need to use him, especially at that price tag. I rather kind of either go cheaper into that next tier or just pay up.
Yeah, agreed. Not something I'm looking to exploit here.
So that's going to wrap it up with the pitcher nail down. Be sure to check out dailyfantasycafe.com for our great tools and content.